hello, Llewellyn. I would ask you to shortly introduce yourself for the beginning.
I'm Llewellyn Falco. I'm an Agile technical coach, which means I sit with the programmers and we do the side of programming and coaching that goes underneath the management. So how do we get the code to actually be usable and malleable? And there's a whole bunch of techniques and disciplines there. And a lot of times we sort of skip over them. And so I'm one of the people who kind of helps us get through those.
Okay, you're at the first Agile Serbia conference. Can you tell us your impressions about the conference and what do you think about the value that is delivered to the participants of the conference and about the organization?
Well, first, I'm surprised that this is the first Serbia conference. There's a whole huge community here. They obviously care about their craft. They care about what we're doing. I'm surprised it took this long for them to come together. I'm glad you guys are getting it together and putting it there. Everyone I've met so far has been fantastic. People really care about what they're doing, and there's a great venue to get everyone together, which is nice. You're like in a theater, and most of the time the conferences are sort of like in the better parts of the hotel. So it's been really lovely here, and I love the audience. I love the crowd.
I'm glad to hear that. Can you tell us how do you as a developer cooperate with testers on your example?
So as I've been developing with testers more, I've come to realize that a lot of times testers would sort of work by themselves, and when they work by themselves, they saw their goal as sort of to find bugs, to find problems in the software. And as we started working together, I've started to see the real value of testers is that stuff gets fixed because of them. And when you sit with a tester and it goes from just this is what's wrong, like a report card, this is how I'm grading you of what's not working, to this is what I'm making you look good at. When I write just even a simple email, a lot of times I will ask my girlfriend, will you proofread this before I go out? That's so that it looks good when I send that email. And I have the same relationship with testers. It's, oh, I just wrote this piece of code. Can you check that it's actually as good in reality as it is in my head? And it's because of that relationship that it starts becoming as good as it is in my head. And I don't look foolish and I don't look stupid. And I really appreciate that in testers. But the only way to do that is to work close together with them. Otherwise, it becomes much more adversarial and much less pleasant.
Okay, thank you. And how would you describe to someone from management why test-driven development is important for efficiency of the software development process and for the quality of the software?
So there's two parts to test-driven development. One is that you have tests, and one is how you write them. And having tests is super important, right? First of all, there's a lot of complexity and there's a lot of regression. And while exploratory testers can find a whole bunch of things that you cannot predict, there's just the sheer volume of regression that will slow you down and stop it. And so you need automated tests to stop that and make that work. And so having those are really useful. And before I get to the test-driven part, there was a situation where, so I have a charity to teach kids to program. And we write free and open source courseware for kids. And we were on a podcast, very popular podcast, .NET Rocks, and they have about 500,000 people in an audience. The day our podcast got released, the software that we build on top of our courseware also got released. And everything broke. Exactly. It was like, And I ran my unit test suite, and 80% of my tests came back failing. And we started going through each test and figuring out, okay, this is failing exactly at this part. We need to fix this. This is failing at this part. And 2 hours later, we had fixed everything. We'd re-released and we'd pushed out. That's what tests give you. It's that ability to respond and figure stuff out at just an unprecedented speed and know, hey, stuff is okay now. That's really, really important to have. Now, you could have that if you write all your code and then you write your tests, but in practicality, you don't, right? Because once your code works, there's less motivation to write the tests, and code that is already written is harder to test. If you write with testing in mind, code becomes easy to test. It's like, if I start by saying, how am I going to get into this room, I start thinking about the door. But if I build the walls and then I say, well, how am I going to get in there? Right? You're like, oh, well, that's really hard. So if you want tests and you want them to be easy for your programmers to write and easy to maintain, and maintenance is another big thing, you have to start with them in mind. There might be other ways to achieve that, but from a practicality sense, I have not seen anything that works. If you want tests, you got to start saying, this is important to me. You can't retrofit them afterwards and expect that system to exist. The importance of test-driven development is saying, this is important to me, let's get it done. Trying to fit it in afterwards, it just does not seem to work.
Okay, and how would you explain to anyone from the business side of a project, for example, project manager or someone from a top management, why refactoring is important and why should they care about code smell, for example?
Oh, yeah. So the quality of code is crazily important. First, there's just the fact that almost everyone is familiar with this scenario where they start writing code and everything's going fast and they're creating stuff and it's great. And then all of a sudden you need more programmers and you're getting less done, right? And it feels that way all over the time, right? Like even if you look at something simple, or simple is the wrong word, but if you look at something like Facebook or Google, you're like, oh, it hasn't really changed that much over the last 2 or 3 years.
Actually, it is.
If it hasn't changed that much over the last 2 or 3 years, why do they have 15,000 developers working every day to make it not change? The reason, like, as stuff gets bigger and more complex, right, there's all this that goes in there. And there's a lot of banking systems that are still written in programs like COBOL. And they're written that way because nobody knows how to get out of those systems. They've tried to replace them. It's really dangerous and really expensive and error-prone and failure. And no one wants their country to collapse because the banks closed for a week because of a bug. And so we're still in COBOL. When you look at your code and you learn to start refactoring and you learn about the code quality, it's like you always get to play with the best stuff. Because the moment, like Ward Cunningham has this phrase, the moment I had an insight on how to do this better, I changed the code so it looks like I knew what I was doing all along. And that means every day our code is getting better. Normally, every day our code gets a little bit worse. It's not much worse than it was yesterday, but it's a little worse. And then it's kind of a lot worse than it was last year, you know, and it's a way worse than it was 10 years ago. But if you go the other way, it's a little bit better than it was yesterday. And hey, it's a lot better than it was last year. And it's amazingly better than it was 10 years ago. And if you don't pay attention to that, it ends up dominating you.
Okay, and in the end, what is your message for the Serbian IT community?
That's a harder one. I think, not just to the Serbian IT community, but to the entire IT community. You know, we are in an industry that changes constantly, that, you know, the stuff that we were doing 10 years ago is almost irrelevant nowadays. And if you are not continually investing in yourself and learning new things and getting new ideas, one of the reasons we go to conferences is because you can have maybe a couple new ideas yourself, but the world has much bigger ideas. And if you're not out there learning from other people and gathering new things and constantly improving, you're going to get run over and just left behind. And so just keep investing in yourself, keep learning, keep improving your craft.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks.